Hello friends, about 70% of the friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and contributes to the growth of the channel. Thank you all. From which country or city do you follow the channel? I once took part in an interview with a being that doesn't belong to this world. I didn't volunteer. I was summoned. In 1964, I was a military linguist, and one cold night in late April, I was pulled into a top-secret program. They didn't tell me much, just handed me a sheet of paper with a bright red warning. You must follow 7 rules. If not, don't expect to leave the room. I thought it was some psychological experiment, another Cold War mind game, maybe a classified stress test. But then, the door opened. And on the other side of the thick glass sat a small creature, oversized head, dark sunken eyes, completely still, as if it had been waiting for me since before I was born. From that moment on, my world was never the same. No dream has been normal since. No whisper ever feels random. And I'm not even sure if the one telling this story today is still really me. They came for me at 2:13 a.m. sharp. Not with a knock on the door or a formal letter, but with 2 men in black uniforms who said nothing, just handed me a sealed envelope with no markings, and a look that told me refusing was not an option. I had just drifted off after another long day at Langley reading over intercepted Soviet transmissions when the pounding on my apartment door pulled me from sleep like a hand yanking me into ice water. I remember blinking at the clock. I remember my mouth was dry. And I remember the sudden, inexplicable feeling that something was watching me, not from the doorway, but from behind my bathroom mirror. The envelope was cold, as if it had been refrigerated. I broke the wax seal with shaking fingers. Inside a single typed card, you are hereby summoned. Transport leaves in 6 minutes. No personal items. Do not speak to the driver. No name, no title. Just that. I didn't even have time to grab my watch. I slipped on my boots, threw on a coat, and stepped outside into the cold air of Virginia. A black windowless car was already waiting. The driver never looked at me. Not once. They drove me for hours. First on familiar roads, then through dark wooded paths, then finally, into nothing. No lights, no cities. Just the endless stretch of desert lit by moonlight with wind that howled like it had a voice. Somewhere near dawn, we pulled off the paved road and onto a dirt trail so narrow it shouldn't have existed on any map. The car shook with every bump, and I swear at one point we passed something not human standing out in the sagebrush. Just standing, watching the car pass. No eyes, just a shape. I didn't ask questions. I didn't dare. At the end of the trail was a metal gate with no guard, no cameras, no signage, just a blinking red light and a keypad. The driver punched in a code I couldn't see, and the gate creaked open as if it hadn't moved in years. We stopped outside a small concrete structure half buried in the sand, barely visible against the rocks. It looked like a storage shed until the steel doors opened, and I realized they led not into a room, but down into the earth. They gave me no escort. I stepped inside alone. The elevator was slow, ancient. It groaned as it descended, and I swear the lights flickered in rhythm with my heartbeat. On the wall, etched into the metal, were 5 words scratched by a knife or a nail. Turn back while you can. The elevator never stopped with a jolt. It just slowed, like it didn't want me to notice we had arrived. The doors opened with a hiss of steam, and I stepped into the most sterile hallway I've ever seen. Gray floors, steel walls, humming lights. Like I had entered a place outside of time. A woman in a white coat waited for me. Her eyes were sunken. She didn't smile. She handed me a metal clipboard without a word and walked away. On the clipboard, 7 words were typed in red ink across the top of the first page: you must follow the rules exactly. And underneath in bold, do not speak. Do not bring metal. Do not break eye contact with the red light. Do not respond to whispers. Do not move during the flicker. Do not leave before you're told. Do not ask what came before you. My hands were trembling by the time I finished reading. Somewhere ahead down that narrow corridor was a locked door. And behind it, something not human was waiting for me. When I first read the list, I thought it was some kind of military psych test. Maybe an advanced psychological conditioning drill. I had seen strange things in my time, but nothing like this. The hallway leading to the interview chamber was eerily silent, not quiet, but empty. Like sound itself had been stripped away. The only thing breaking the monotony was the soft buzzing of the red light above me, and the weight of the clipboard in my hand. My fingers were slick with sweat as I reread the first rule. The bolded words seemed almost too simple, but then I heard something. Not a voice, not a sound, but a pressure behind my ears like someone was about to whisper to me through the walls of my mind. And in that moment, my instinct was to ask, "Who's there?" I caught myself. There was a camera watching from the corner, and something told me they were waiting to see if I'd speak first. Like breaking the silence would be a trigger. As I stepped into the decontamination chamber, a metallic chime rang out. The red light above turned blue for half a second. Immediately, a voice flat and robotic blared from a hidden speaker, "Remove all metallic items, now." I had forgotten my belt buckle. When I set it down on the tray, the light returned to red. Was it reacting or warning? Somewhere deep inside me, I felt like the metal itself had offended something. As the second door opened and I entered the pre-interview chamber, I noticed a single red light on the ceiling softly pulsing like a heartbeat. There was nothing else in the room. Just me, a chair, and that light. I sat. I looked at the light, and then I felt eyes watching me. Not the kind you sense through paranoia, but the real tangible sensation of a gaze. Cold, calculating, inhuman. My eyes twitched. I wanted to glance around, just a peek, but the rule burned in my mind like fire. Do not look away. I clenched my jaw. I stared. In the corner of my vision, I swear I saw shapes shifting in the shadows. I don't remember when the whispering started. It wasn't like hearing someone speak, it was like remembering a memory that wasn't yours. A voice said, "You've been here before." Another, "You never left." Then, one that sounded like my father, who had died 10 years earlier. "Son, get up. Don't trust them." I nearly screamed. My hands gripped the chair so tightly I could hear the leather crack. But I didn't answer. I just stared at the red light, until the whispers faded like smoke. The red light flickered once, twice, 3 times. I froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. It felt like the air itself changed, denser, heavier. Like something else had stepped into the room. In my peripheral vision, the shadows no longer seemed like shadows. They moved, but not like anything natural. They slithered upward, backward, sideways directions that didn't make sense. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. And then the light returned to normal. The presence was gone. I was still alive. The door behind me opened with a soft click. My instincts screamed, "Run." The voice returned over the speaker, "Remain seated." I obeyed. 3 minutes passed, maybe 5. Then a new voice, calm, deep, impossibly resonant, echoed in my mind. "You may enter now." It didn't come from the speaker. It came from inside me. As I stood up, something scratched the inside of my foot. I looked down. There, carved faintly into the floor beneath the chair, were names. At least 30. Maybe more. Etched in desperation. One of them looked smeared in blood. Above them, 4 words scratched in jagged letters. They never came back. I wanted to ask what happened to them, but I didn't, because now I understood the rules weren't written to protect the entity. They were written to protect me. The door in front of me hissed open, not with a mechanical whine, but with a soft exhale, as if something alive had just taken a breath. I stepped into the chamber. It was colder than I expected, unnaturally cold. Yet there was no visible source of ventilation. No camera. No heat. Just an empty steel table in the center of the room. And it sitting across from me. The thing was small, no more than 4 feet tall, yet it felt enormous. Its head was elongated, nearly skeletal, with smooth grayish skin that shimmered like oil in candlelight. The eyes, black voids without end, reflected nothing, and still I felt them boring into me. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It simply waited. I took the seat across from it as instructed. No words were spoken. The red light above buzzed softly. I kept my gaze fixed on it. Then, without warning, I felt a presence in my head. Not a voice, not language. A thought like a memory someone else was showing me. A burning world. A planet spiraling into its dying sun. Screams, but not through mouths. Entire cities wailing in a frequency only minds could detect. Then a ship, small, fractured, drifting away from the fire. A single survivor. I gasped, and the pain struck me like ice through my skull. I blinked and looked down for a split second. When I looked back up, it was closer. I tried to compose a response, not aloud, of course, but a thought, a gesture of acknowledgement. Why are you here? Instantly, my mind flooded with images. Earth. Not now, but future Earth. A desolate city. Sky turned black, towers hollowed out like bones, and something crawling beneath the ground whispering in thousands of voices. One word echoing inside me. Repeat. The being trembled slightly. Not from fear, from strain, like it was barely holding itself together. I felt blood trickle from my nose. The light flickered, once, then twice. On the third flicker, I froze. Rule 5. Do not move during the flicker. Everything went silent, and then the thing began to change. Its skin stretched, its shoulders cracked outward, its limbs retracted, bent, then lengthened again. I watched in horror as its face began to reshape, the jaw forming, the eyes sinking, the skin morphing, until I was staring into my own face. But it wasn't me. It smiled. A long, slow, unnatural curl of the lips that I have never made in my life. You see, it whispered directly into my head using my own voice. We do not take your language. We take your form. My breath hitched. The temperature in the room dropped further. My fingertips went numb. And then I asked something I shouldn't have. What happened to the others before me? The thing paused. The walls trembled. The light above flared red-hot, casting shadows that moved on their own. In my mind, I saw them. The others. Men in uniforms. Scientists. One even wore the same badge I had. Each of them frozen in place, their bodies contorted in positions that shouldn't be possible. Heads twisted around, mouths open wide in permanent screams. But the worst part? Their eyes. They were all staring at me. Suddenly the light turned green. The voice returned emotionless. Interview complete. Subject may exit, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Because across the table, the being was gone, and I was sitting alone. Yet I could still feel something inside me watching from within. When I finally stood up, the walls didn't look the same. The hallway back to the elevator had changed. Longer, darker, quieter. And as I walked out, I realized I wasn't sure if I had just interviewed the alien, or if I was the one being interviewed all along. I don't remember leaving the interview room. One moment I was staring at myself across the table, and the next I was back in the hallway, disoriented, my heart pounding like a war drum. But something was wrong. The walls weren't the same shade of gray. The floor beneath my boots was softer, almost like flesh. And the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. It had changed pitch, lower, slower, like it was breathing. I turned to retrace my steps, but the door behind me was gone. Not closed. Gone. I kept walking. Not because I knew where I was going, but because stopping felt like surrendering to something watching from just behind the air. The hallway bent ever so slightly. Not enough to notice at first, until I realized I was spiraling deeper, not outward. As I passed the same flickering light for the third time, I paused. That's when I saw it. My own shadow moving on its own. It twitched, then raised its hand even though mine didn't. I ran. I came upon a door I didn't recognize, deep red with no handle, just a small black panel that pulsed softly in rhythm with my heartbeat. Without touching it, the door slid open. Inside was a small circular chamber lined with mirrors. Dozens of them, but only one reflection, me sitting in the interview room unmoving. In the reflection, the being across from me was still there. still smiling, but now it was holding something. A string, thin shimmering, stretched taut from its fingers to the back of my reflection's skull, like a puppeteer. A sharp whisper sliced through my mind. You asked what happened to the others. It wasn't the being from before. This voice was older, tired, like something that had spoken to too many minds for too long. I collapsed to my knees. My vision blurred. The chamber spun. And then I saw it not with my eyes, but with whatever was left of myself, a room, buried beneath everything, lined with chairs. Every chair occupied by a version of me. Some screamed. Some wept. Some were still breathing, but barely. And one was smiling my smile, but hollow. Plastic. Wrong. Something cracked. Not a wall. Not a bone. Something in me. Suddenly I was standing outside the mirror room, but my hands were covered in blood. There was no wound. I looked up and saw the red light again. It blinked once, then again, then total darkness. When the light returned, I was at another door. A sign above it read, "Debriefing." I hesitated. Something deep inside screamed, "Don't open it. That's not the way back." It never was, but I had no choice. I turned the handle, and as the door creaked open, I heard it again, my voice from somewhere ahead. "Let the next one in." That was when I realized, maybe I had never crossed the threshold. Maybe the moment I sat in that chair, I never left. And whatever I am now, whatever's telling you this story, might just be what came back instead. They tell me I left the facility, that I was found wandering the edge of the Nevada desert 3 days later, dehydrated and half delirious. That I must have suffered a psychotic break. That I imagined the underground corridors, the interview, the thing. But they're wrong. They're lying. Because I remember everything. I remember the rules. I remember the red light. And I remember what it showed me, not with images, but with truths I wasn't supposed to know. I've tried to live a normal life since then. I got a desk job. I don't talk about it until now. But every year on the anniversary of the interview, something happens. The first one arrived 5 years ago. A plain black box on my doorstep. No postage. No markings. Inside, a photo. A tape recorder. A single sentence written on paper. Play it when you're alone. I waited until midnight. The tape hissed for a full minute before a voice spoke. Not mine. Not anyone I know. You are the only one who came back. But you did not come back alone. I couldn't sleep that night. Weeks later, I started seeing reflections that weren't mine. They blinked when I didn't. They mouthed words I couldn't hear. One night, my reflection smiled and blood began leaking from its eyes. I turned away, terrified. But when I looked back, it was gone. The mirror was empty. At least 3 times a year, I catch glimpses of men in black suits outside my apartment. Always different men. Always the same expression, blank. Once I confronted one. He didn't speak. Just handed me another note, "The interview is still ongoing," and walked away. Last night, another black box. Inside, a single cassette, labeled "Final Phase." The tape didn't play at first. I had to rewind it. The audio was rough, distorted. Then I heard a voice, but this time it was mine. Not a recording, not a mimic. Me, saying things I've never said. He thinks he left, but he never did. We're letting him live on the surface, for now. Let's see how long until he remembers he's not real anymore. I don't know what I am anymore. I sleep, but I don't dream. I breathe, but sometimes forget how. And lately, I've stopped seeing my reflection altogether. There are moments, seconds, where I feel like I'm being pulled back, like the interview is still happening, that I never got out of the chair, that all of this is just a simulation running on loop, and every loop I get closer to realizing the truth. Because it's not just me. If you're hearing this, if you're reading this, if you've ever felt like your dreams aren't yours, like your reflection is a half-second too slow, like time sometimes hiccups for no reason, then maybe you were interviewed too. And maybe the rules didn't protect you. They just delayed the inevitable. Do not speak. Do not break eye contact. Do not move during the flicker. If these rules ever feel familiar, like you've read them somewhere before, run. Because the moment you remember them, it means they're already watching. And this message was never a warning. It was the trigger. If you found this story valuable and interesting, please hit the like button. This really helps us bring you more good and valuable content. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think, what questions you have, or what topics you would like us to cover next. We love hearing from you. Of course, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next stories. Thank you for taking the time to read my stories.